Hello, and welcome back to the Alexandria Society podcast for yet another Mystery Docket. I'm your host today, Tim. I'm here to fill you with promises for a medical device so far inflated that my team will slowly leave one by one with their dissatisfaction with the lies they're telling the public. And with me today is my ever-present co-host, Derek, who, if you ever confront us about our overinflated lies, will berate you so far that you break down crying, and will probably fire you if you don't work multiple hours outside your 9 to 5. How are you, Derek?
That was so long-winded, man. That was so long. No, after the last few mystery dockets that you've done, I'm actually looking forward to this one because I'm not going to feel like I need to drink myself into a stupor afterwards. This one's just going to be funny.
Yeah, this one's pretty funny. So how was your week, Derek? How was the life as a pencil pusher at a dentist office?
It's nothing to report. Nothing go. It's the same old grind. I got yelled at by some patients a couple times. That was fun. Yeah, I'm slowly like getting out of my kind of forced by necessity to get out of my retail headspace. At this job just to be able to cope.
Yeah, retail fucks with your head on actually talking back IRL.
Anyways, same as usual. Nothing to report. Sam, how are you doing?
So, Derek, what are you drinking tonight?
Oh, what am I drinking tonight? So, what I've got for my sips is gonna be something I got from Tim. This is orange a tang. It's a hard orange soda. We've had it on the show before, or Tim's had it on the show before. It's literally just orange soda with alcohol, and it's really good. It's really good. I really like it. 5%. It's made by
It's local.
It's Tripping Animals Brewing and American Solera.
Oh, American Solera. It's like a Latino American brewing. I think they've got like a lizard for a mascot.
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, man, I'm just now realizing this would have been a great combination for the next episode. Anyways, for my shots, going back to Clontarf, 1014, Irish whiskey, triple distilled, 40%. Pretty good stuff. I like it.
I thought you thought it tasted weird last time you had it.
I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. I don't know. I guess I'm about to figure out. Let's see. I'll figure it out. Tim, what are you drinking?
So tonight I went back to our old friends at Anthem Brewing because I love their stuff and they put out plenty of sours for me. Pineapple Mango Sour Ale, 5.1%. And then I was like, you know what? You know what type of liquor I haven't had in forever since the Clontarf? Whiskey. So I was like, I need to go buy a whiskey. So I got Old Forester, Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, 42%. 43%.
43. Yeah, you gotta be precise. That's a big difference.
Well, no, the math wasn't mathing in my head because it says 86 proof. I'm like, 43 isn't 86. I mean, 42 ain't 86.
Yeah, half of 8 is 4, half of 6 is 3. Why do they do it like? Why do they do proofs like that? Why don't they just use percent?
I don't know. I think it's back before we were using ABV, like before we could gauge it properly, but you could tell proofs a lot easier, I guess. That's my guess. I don't know.
Maybe we're just fucking stupid.
Probably. You ready for that shot, brother?
Oh, yeah, let's do our shot. What else?
Cheers.
So, Tim, what are we talking about today?
So, we are talking about the company Theranos that I am convinced the CEO of the company, Elizabeth Holmes, if she put her mind to it, could have been a cult leader.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like
she has every every time you hear people talk about her. Unfortunately, I don't have a whole lot of those stories in my script. I don't have hardly any. So I'm going to start off this episode a little different than we normally do. I'm going to give you a list of 4 major players. 2 of them are going to be like our main leaders of the company, and then they're going to be our opposition, and I'll introduce after that. So Elizabeth Holmes, the leader of Theranos, the founder of Theranos, was born February 3rd, 1984. She had a fairly normal childhood.
Oh, don't they always?
But there was one there's one quote that sticks out from that really like tells you she wasn't normal even back then. You want to guess kind of what the quote was, like, or anything? To the effect. You don't have to. You're not gonna be able to get the quote, but
I'm gonna guess it's like some sort of unhealthy obsession that made adults in her lives worry about her.
I wish they would have worried about her. But yes. And can you guess what that unhealthy obsession was about?
Ooh. I'm gonna say blood?
No. She's in fact scared of blood.
Oh, okay.
She was quoted when she was a child, when she was asked, what does she want to be when she grows up? She said she wanted to be a billionaire because no one cares what you do when you're a billionaire. That's not the exact quote, but that's the effect she said. She gave as a child the sociopath answer, in my opinion.
But like the really, really honest sociopath answer.
Yeah.
That is. If you ever hear a child say that, just beat them.
That or a lot of fucking therapy.
They need to learn a lesson now, because if you let that continue to fester in their brain, it is going to be bad for everybody.
So Elizabeth dropped out of Stanford University, at 19 to start Theranos.
Dropped out of Stanford is not a good way to start. Like, you just same thing as that quote. It's just the only bad things are coming after that.
You want to know a funny thing? So Theranos was not the original name. Do you have any idea what the original name was?
Oh, no fucking idea, dude.
She originally named the company Real Time Cures.
That sounds like that sounds like the name of like an herbal tea brand with like essential oils mixed into it.
That had a cult behind it.
Yeah, like Sleepy Time.
Yogi is the one that is the cult. I think both of them are, but I know Yogi definitely is.
Come on, cults just like making teas.
They do.
It's why I'm pro cult.
So they originally named the company Real Time Cures. Can you guess what unfortunate error occurred on the first couple checks?
Oh man, I don't know. You can't keep asking me these.
You're bad at guessing.
You're just giving me these super open-ended questions. Like, how the fuck am I supposed to know?
It was accidentally printed as Real Time Curses.
You know, God works in mysterious ways.
He does. Supposes he exists. Our next player for Theranos is going to be Sunny Balwani. His real name is Ramesh Balwani, and he was born June 13th, 1965.
Yeah, but nobody in Silicon Valley could pronounce Ranesh.
Back in the early Silicon boom, yes. I feel like those like names are a lot more known. Like, people would know how to pronounce those names a little bit better now. I wouldn't say it's widely better. It's marginally enough better that I could pronounce Ramesh.
Yeah, I don't know. Silicon Valley is just so white.
Fair. He was very aggressive. He was short, is what I was told. I didn't get a height, but I was told he was short.
Short king.
So I think he was compensating for his height. He moved to the U.S. at the age of 21 in 1986. And he worked for Lotus Software and Microsoft. You can tell he's one of those people that boasted a lot, because he claimed to have written 1 million lines of code for Microsoft.
Bro, nobody cares. Nobody cares, dude. Don't.
No, Derek, do you know how absurd that claim is?
Oh, yeah. I'm sure it's like exaggerated, definitely, but
most coders, I can't remember the exact stat, write 1 to 200 or 1 to 2,000. I can't remember the stat per year. And he claimed to have been with his tenure at Microsoft was not long enough to have, even if he was writing at like God levels compared to his other associates, to have written 1 million lines of code.
Yeah, but it's for what it's worth. Like, sounds like he was in on early software development, like pretty early on.
Oh, he was. He also got lucky as a jaybird towards the tail end of the .com boom. He had created a company that I can't exactly remember what it did, but it was like a commerce platform of some kind where I can't even remember the specifics to be honest. But he sold it right before the end of the dot-com boom for $40 million. And I think that was his take, not the final total. Or so, like he got $40 million is what I know. And there's even this funny little thing that he hired a tax firm to help him pay as little as taxes as he could. And he eventually sued that tax firm because he claimed, well, I didn't know they were going to do illegal shit to get me the most out of my taxes, when it found out that they were doing illegal shit to get people more of their out of taxes.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm hearing a lot of rich tech guy shit so far. So yeah, keep going.
Elizabeth, running back to her real quick, she came from a well-to-do family, but not a well-to-do family that by the time she had grown up, they'd kind of run through their inheritance. Not like fully, but like they're not where they wanted to be, like family-wise, like family money-wise. Just the immediate family. Like, comes from a well-to-do, well-off family. They're like the poor immediate family of a rich family, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, like how Napoleon came from like an impoverished noble family. Like they still had the title that gave him a lot of shit, but didn't have a lot behind it.
That's the best comparison I can get. I didn't go to that level of detail, so I don't know if that's accurate, but from what I understand, yes, that is pretty accurate.
Yeah. Yeah, not to compare this tool bag to Napoleon, but
so on our side, on the people for knowledge and actually the truth, is John Carreyrou. Have you heard of him?
I have not actually, no.
He is an investigative journalist for the Wall Street Journal. He's a French American. No, it's the New York Times. Oh, both. He has won the Pulitzer Prize twice.
Oh, wow.
He's our investigator. He spends years investigating this. So, like, almost everything we knew about this initially broke from him. So that's what you need to know going in.
Yeah, he kind of cracked this nut.
Then we have Tyler Shults. And he was the grandson of the then director of the Theranos. But his grandfather happened to be former U.S. Secretary of State George P. Shults.
Oh, which administration was he with?
A lot of them.
Oh, shit. Kind of a lesser Kissinger.
Probably. I'm going to look him up real quick. I don't know a whole lot about him because he's kind of a background character. He was originally appointed by Reagan, but he was one of the people that came from that era that kind of treaded along and never really had a really big scandal. He was just really well respected in the political circle.
Okay, yeah.
Tyler Shults comes into play because Holmes was over basically trying to convince his grandfather to invest in the company, and he heard the pitch, and he took it hook, line, and sinker. And he was like, I believe in it. But Tyler, the thing is, he doesn't have the money to invest into the company because he's just the grandson. His family's not, like, rich, like his immediate family, obviously. So he begs Holmes for an internship, and through nepotism, he gets it.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, there's going to be a bunch of, like, pretty notable people from the U.S. government that's involved as, like, investors and stuff.
I kind of skipped over that, but, like, President Biden, when he was the vice president, visits. Holmes, while the whole scandal was about to breaking, hosted a fundraiser for Hillary Clinton. And, like, there was a star-studded board of directors for Theranos. Like, Schultz's grandfather, they had David Boyce, the lawyer who defended Al Gore. And I didn't know that except for because of this case, because he comes up. And just like a bunch of like very powerful people were on the board of directors. He was so into Holmes's pitch that after his internship, his like last semester, he was on his last semester of college. He changed his major enough so the last semester he could get more biomedical knowledge and like changed his major. And he somehow was able to get that done and graduate on the same time, which is impressive.
Yeah, that's the thing with all of the stories like this is that it sucks so hard that nobody involved is ever like just a moron. Like they're really good at something. They're just like dipshits at like specific things that causes their downfall.
I would argue that Sonny was just a dipshit that Holmes was in love with. Because that's the thing I haven't gotten to yet. Sonny met Holmes while she was in college. So, like, 19 or younger. And, like, she was off in another country. I can't remember the country's name. I want to say it's a Asian country. It was an Asian country, and they met. They got along. At first, it seemed like he was just being supportive. But during one of the early Christmas parties, before Sonny was brought in as, like, the director of Theranos, he was introduced as Holmes's boyfriend. Once Sonny moved to the Silicon Valley area, a year after he signed his lease, approximately, Holmes's residence of address was Sonny's thing, but they were never openly together. It was one of those, like, let's start off with what Holmes originally envisioned versus what she ended up making the company actually have.
Yeah, I think of all of the aspects of this story, like from what I remember, like this bit is my favorite because of like all of this ends up happening over like a cardboard box with a couple wires in it.
It's not quite that dumb, but yeah. So the original vision for the company that Holmes saw that is still out of reach, even remotely possible today, because what she saw is a patch. And she wanted a patch that was like basically, you know what the blood sugar tests that you put on with those patches and it sends the data to your phone?
Yeah, my mom uses one.
She wanted to basically be that of blood tests, but have like a entire suite, like almost every blood test you can think of, just like that. But she didn't want it to be what we have with our blood sugar tests today. She wanted to be like the size of like those nicotine patches, only a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
Amazing end goal. You're not going to start there. There's no way in hell. Like, we can't do that today.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the just right amount of ambitious that you know if it's coming from a tech person is a scam.
Yeah. Yeah. Keep this in mind. Holmes had no background in medicine. She knew nothing about she had no basis to think she could do this. She hired people to do this.
Oh, yeah, what is her what is her knowledge base? What's her experience up to this point, like as far as like tech goes?
I don't remember what her major was because it wasn't she dropped out like at like third semester or something, from what I understand.
But what it sounds like is she has like a background in coding and she thinks it makes her qualified to make like medical technology, which is...
So Holmes graduated from high school at St. John's School in Houston. During high school, she was interested in programming and claims to have started her first business selling C++ compilers to Chinese universities.
That sounds like bullshit.
Yeah. She attended Stanford University. Okay, so that's why... so when I was going through the books, I ended up using two. We'll get to that at the end. But when I was going through the books, it talked about how she had been in college for multiple years, but how when she dropped out so young, I was really confused. And this is just this detail was in the books, but it's like glossed over so much that you kind of forget. She was attending Stanford University before she graduated because she was doing the Mandarin program. Like she was like, you can get into that part without.
Oh yeah.
Actually, you can take language classes without actually being out of high school and all that. While she was that's actually how she met Sonny. So she probably met Sonny at like 17, 18.
Oh, that's even worse. That makes me even less comfortable.
Yeah. She attended the chemical engineering, so she had a little bit of chemical knowledge, but that doesn't really apply too much to biotech.
Yeah, I'm hearing a whole lot of no biotech background so far.
At the end of her freshman year, Holmes worked at a laboratory at the Genome Institute of Singapore, and so it's Singapore is where she met Sonny, and tested for severe acute respiratory syndrome, coronavirus. There's old Rona again, but different. SARS-CoV-2, not the good old COVID-19, through the collection of blood samples with syringes. She filed her patient application for what would eventually become her idea for Theranos in 2003. That I didn't know. Supposedly she was raped in 2003. That just drops out of nowhere on the Wikipedia, because that's never brought up any other time in anything I know about it. And then she dropped out of Stanford and used what was supposed to be her tuition to pay for the company. That was her seed money. And then what she actually ended up delivering was basically she took a bunch of blood test machines and took the ideas behind them and how they tested it and tried to shrink it down all into one box.
It's one of those ideas that, on the surface, being an ignorant dipshit like I am, sounds like feasible with a little bit of work, but I know in practice is like, no, you can't fucking do this. it's
Yeah, so what ended up happening is they were doing a lot of tests that required a specific level of dilution. But because they wanted to focus on a low amount of blood, they further diluted it, basically invalidating the results because they had wildly inaccurate results. They would sometimes have people tell that they had a potassium level that should have killed them, and sometimes it would, like, too high, and sometimes it would say it was fine when it was not. Just
hey, what can I say? I like my bananas. I eat them all day. Don't judge me for that, you stupid machine.
that reminds me of that one Reddit idea. You remember, if you eat this ridiculous amount of bananas, you would die from the radioactive poisoning when you physically could not eat that many bananas. The radiation poisoning would kill me.
The radiation causing complete organ shutdown the moment I eat my millionth banana in half an hour.
Because of course your stomach would hold the millionth banana.
Potassium is such a cool element. Go on.
So Theranos' long-term goal was to use a single drop of blood to run a litany of tests through the use of their nanotainer, which sounds really sophisticated, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, it sounds like it's something impressive. So going through this, I had never seen the nanotainer. And what I assumed the nanotainer was, have you ever gone and donated blood and they'll poke your finger, but they're not getting your blood sugar, they're getting your iron? And it has that little plastic thing that soaks up your blood?
I've never donated blood, or I've never had, yeah.
Hopefully our audience at home knows what. Basically, it's a little plastic cartridge that's like about the size of in length of a USB stick, a little bit thicker, maybe like 1.5 USB sticks wide. And it's like, it just like kind of has little tubes that sucks up your blood, and it does that. That was what I was envisioning before I got and looked at it, because I wanted to look it up so I knew what it looks. It's literally just a tiny miniaturized blood vial that's about that big, Derek. It's like barely an inch.
Okay.
It's just a ultra mini blood vial. What in reality happened? Because throughout their thing, they claim to have a suite of like over, I want to say 200 tests that they could run. And they claimed these were all being run on their machines. What ended up really being happening is they claimed you could just do the finger prick like you do for your blood test, like for your blood sugar, my bad. They would run all those tests. But what they would really do is they would actually have you draw a normal draw blood through like the intravenous draw. They would get the normal tubes, and they claimed, oh, we're going to take the samples from that tube or whatever. So that's what ended up actually being happening. And it was not run on the Theranos device. It wasn't run on the Edison or anything like that. It was actually run on hacked machines from their competitors. Because they were trying to hack it and then reverse engineer it so they could miniaturize it.
And they couldn't do it.
Not to the level that Holmes wanted. I think one of the biggest issues beyond just their inability to hold their expectations, just stay underground and like quit inflating their actual ability, was Holmes was obsessed at making everything as small as possible without caring about the feasibility, without how reliable are we actually making these good, accurate tests in the box. My first idea, if I was in her shoes, is what kind of machine can we create if we put all of those all together? Like, can we get our reliable results, see what amount of blood we need for that to be able to go through the whole machine, and then work on miniaturizing, work on consolidating, and then work from there. That's what would have been the reasonable thing to do.
Yeah, but that costs money.
They were worth billions!
Yeah, but that costs money, Tim. Tim, we've got fucking mansions to buy and nice cars to show off on Instagram. We can't afford to spend money on like actual like R&D.
R&D and research. Now, I don't know if anyone looked at it from this angle, so I could be wrong with this claim. I didn't hear about them overtly flaunting their wealth a lot, either her or Sonny. Like, yes, they had a luxurious cars, but they didn't buy, like, from what I heard, they didn't do multiple. They didn't, like, whatever. They just, I think they had a decent draw from the company, like, pension or, like, not pension, but salary, and were able to do that. It didn't sound like they were just dipping out of the funds, if you get what I'm saying.
That is, that's almost more unsettling, actually.
They put actual money into R&D, but they were not doing it in a smart, economical way.
Okay, and here I go again doing the classic thing I always tell people to avoid is never attribute to malice what can be just reasonably explained through stupidity.
While there is a good amount of both in this, I would say there is an overwhelmingly heaping pile of shit of stupidity in this. Well, more like the amount of malice here is probably like the Appalachians, and then their stupidity is Mount Everest, if you want to compare.
I like that analogy. That's a good job. Yeah.
And another going back to the. I know she's not diagnosed, but everything about her screams sociopath to me. She was obsessed with Apple, specifically Steve Jobs.
This is what I remember about her best. Is all this shit.
Holmes was obsessed to the point where she poached several Apple employees. They didn't last long because they went through employees like no one's business. And she used to just be like a frumpy sweater-wearing person, like not the attractive like turtleneck she ended up going with. Like, as unsettling as she is, like it's an okay dress. She doesn't look bad, you know. She copied Steve Jobs' look, the black turtleneck and khakis. It was. She also pitched her voice down. We talked about this before the podcast, in an unnatural, creepy, unsettling manner.
Listening to her talk, like at her like pitches and stuff, it is so upsetting.
I cannot do more than a couple seconds because it's so unsettled. Yeah,
it's especially after like you start with a video of her like her natural voice, and then you go and switch over to like one of her investment pitches, and it is so upsetting. It's like genuinely just
I heard in my book they had a clip of her breaking character for a second, and then you can see her slowly hear her work her pitch down. I'm like, no, you don't sound right.
It's the same uncanny valley feeling that I get when I see like, you know, those like really basic androids that they put like a synthetic skin on so it kind of looks vaguely human, but it's like still so just obviously unnatural that it just makes me.
The iRobot. Remember the movie iRobot? It
makes my skin crawl. I can't.
It's I don't want to say it's a fully the uncanny valley with iRobot, but it's the same ballpark. because you clearly know it's not human. Like, it's distinctly not human, but it's so unsettling how close it is.
Or like the first time I watched Star Trek: The Next Generation and Data came on screen for the first time, I kind of had that same effect. I could get used to Data though because at least he was like an enjoyable character.
The obsession didn't end there. She hired the same marketing firm as Apple, Chiat Day, and they designed the website. And the liaison was super concerned about how unbacked a lot of the claims on the website were. And there's this cool little story in the book where like he like even called up their own lawyers like, "Hey, we're not going to be liable if this shit comes to bite them in the ass, right? Nope, long as you have it in writing that that's what the client wanted, you should be good." It's like, okay, as long, and they got everything in writing, and then once it was time for final review, finally Elizabeth walked back some of her claims.
Yeah, even she couldn't handle that much bullshit.
Speaking about the obsession, so the day Steve Jobs died, there is a kind of depressing story. So she was like depressed all day, and they sent one of the people. So Holmes hired her brother, who was just fresh out of like college, and they called him and his friends that they hired after the frat pack.
Oh god, that's not good.
No, they sent one of the boys from the frat pack to go get an Apple flag to fly at half-mast. And it took him like... Yes! They did that. And they actually had to go get a flag custom made.
I'm shooting.
Is that a shot?
I'm shooting for that.
Okay, that's a shot. Cheers.
Bust.
I'm glad I remembered that because that was not in my script at all. One of the frat packs gets the Apple flag. They fly at half-mast, and Holmes is a little bit appeased. And there's another story of her obsession where she called right after the biography on Steve Jobs was released. Everyone knew what chapter she was on. Do you want to know why?
I'm guessing it either she was talking about it constantly or the way that she dressed.
No. So first of all, she did a whole hands-on meeting for this biography and gave everyone a fucking copy, for one. That's how obsessed she was. Two, they could tell by how far she was in the book by what part of Steve Jobs' career she was emulating by her leadership style.
Oh, okay. That fucking makes sense.
So, as I've alluded to throughout this episode, they fired a fuckload of people.
Oh, I bet no doubt.
Anytime they got bucked back, that person basically was fired. Almost never was anyone allowed. Like, I think I heard of one or two people being able to serve their 2 weeks in the entire story. Also, Sonny was known to verbally berate people, not only when they were getting fired, but just in general. There was one story from John Carreyrou's book, Bad Blood. That was one of the books I read. I'll cite them at the end as well. But one of the employees, like this, I think this was one of the lab people, and they were like there for a long time. This is one of the few people that survived there a really long time. Had just gotten a new car, and they were super proud of it. It's like they first brand new car person, like, I'm proud as hell. And after a little bit, their car got hit in the parking lot. And it's like it's compound. No one else could have hit the car but another employee. But there was no insurance left. It was a hit and run in the employee parking lot. So he went detective mode and he searched a lot. And he didn't just like, oh, that's a thing that kind of matches. Pulled out the fucking tape measure, looked at the paint color and all that. This fucker did it. And then he waited for the owner to come out, and got to backtrack a little bit because that's just kind of how you have to introduce the story. There was a group of people that Sonny had brought in, I believe from India, that were like Sonny's people. He was protective of them. And the owner of that car that hit his was in Sonny's little group of people. And they were coming out for a smoke break. Well, he confronted the owner of the car. And he's like, you hit my car. The guy's just not having it. He's like, no, I didn't. Blah, 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 blah. I was like, dude, I have the fucking tape measure. It lines up perfectly. You did it. And they get scared. The group from Sonny's guys, they run inside to Sonny because they're scared. Sonny comes out screaming and shouting, oh, you want to be a detective so fucking much? Why don't you go be one? And fires him right then and there. In the parking lot, pissed off, screaming.
God, this fucking guy.
Oh, I hate Sonny. Like, the only reason he's not out of this story the top of my shit list, because Holmes is just such a fucking sociopath. She just skips right above him. Although the potential, like, realizing he might have been a little bit of a pedophile, it's really close. Might jump over, might not.
Ooh, are we gonna be getting into that?
There's not enough there to be able to tell even in the real story. There's no way to tell. Like, there's no rumors come out about either one or anything like that. Just they had dated when she was uncomfortably young.
Oh, just that, yeah. Yeah, that in and of itself is bad enough.
So around the time that the H1N1 virus was like going around the world, Holmes saw it was as an opportunity. There was
like a bleach salesman.
She somehow got a contract with the Mexican government to send a bunch of their machines down to the border. And one of their employees and Sonny went down there because this employee was the only employee that knew Spanish. That was the only reason that employee got to go. And the employee was convinced that Sonny was scared of her because she was the only one that could communicate with the officials. And she thought he was worried because she was going to rat him out like, hey, this shit doesn't really fucking work. There was also, don't quote me on the country because I had an audiobook, not a physical book, so I couldn't go back and double check my countries and all that. There was a Asian country, I believe Hong Kong, where another employee accompanied Sonny along to do the same kind of work, and they got the same kind of contract, but that employee's convinced Sonny was paying people off.
To do what?
So they could actually use their machines. It was basically illegal public experimentation.
Okay. Yeah. Hey, if tech is concerned, either Hong Kong or Singapore are probably safe bets if you want to guess one of those.
We've talked about this before. I don't think it ever made it into the episodes. But you know how Silicon Valley was around that time. The late 2000s, early to mid 2010s, where like everyone was like, the next big thing could be around the corner. I got to invest in every fucking thing I can, right?
Yeah, the iPhone was still shiny and new.
FOMO was the forefront of investment. I'm afraid to miss out.
Yeah, we were just now starting to get computers that weren't the size of like a fucking Prius.
Yeah. So that led to two specific companies partnering with Theranos. It was also rumored that Pfizer and another company partnered, but they claimed there was no real partnership. I've heard literally claims both ways. I'm not going to say it actually did or didn't. I'm not John Carreyrou's level of investigation, unfortunately. He claimed Pfizer and I think another company did. I haven't seen his evidence. I don't know, but the claim is out there. So right before its failure, Safeway was like, we're going to lean into Theranos. We're going to remodel 800 stores for $350 million with this partnership that we're going to do with Theranos. And that's going to be our selling point. You can come shop here and you can get your blood tested.
Sounds like it'll end well.
I think that's what led to Safeway's death. It was right there towards the tail end of their career, right? Because they died in 15, 16, right?
They sank the very last, they took out all of the board of directors took out mortgages on their homes. They scrapped all of their employees' pensions. just to get the scrape together the last $350 million to this company's name, and they invested it in Theranos.
Yeah, like that. I don't know if that's what economists believe, and I don't know enough Safeway to say for certain. But I like in my head thinking Theranos sunk Safeway. Walgreens also did the same thing, and they were actually jealous of each other. Like, well, no, Safeway is our grocery store exclusive partner, and Walgreens is our pharmacy exclusive partner. But Walgreens played it way more safe. They only put Theranos in 40 stores, and they didn't spend. They put them in closets. They didn't do a big old remodel that costs $350 million.
Yeah, I'm seeing some of the financial decisions that Safeway was probably making that might have led to their downfall. Is instead of having a pilot program, just going all in immediately.
One of them, I can't remember which company. The ADHD got me. One of them did have kind of a pilot program because they augmented their insurance with Theranos. Like, hey, here's our corporate office thing. They have a lab in our corporate office, and you can get your tested. You can be ahead of the curve. You can make sure you're protecting yourself and constantly vigilant on your health, testing your blood for shit. And most of the shit was not on Theranos devices. Like, I don't know the exact numbers, but probably 90% of Theranos' blood tests were not run on Theranos devices.
Yeah. You put the drop in, and then there's just a line of code across the screen for a few seconds, and it just says, "Yep, it's blood."
Well, they actually described it as a joke that the blood went in the machine. A hand was waiting in the machine to run, take it from there, and take it to a laboratory. Was a running joke in the company, or I think is what Tyler told us. Or
That's so funny. It's so fucking funny.
So
it's so good.
It's pretty fucking funny. The next little bit is Tyler's way out of Theranos.
Oh, good. He got out. Good for him.
Not soon enough, in my opinion, but hey ho. As time went on, Tyler started basically, at first, he was conducting experiments to basically confirmation testing, I think is what it was called, that he was doing. He was done designing experiments. He got moved around a couple times, whatever. But he was realizing, hey, this data's not adding up, because they were cherry picking their data to make their statistics a lot better than they had any right to be.
I'm no mathematician, but this shit ain't adding up.
No, it is not. So as time went on, he went to his grandfather with these statistics and hey, you need to do something. And he broke it down. He explained everything to his grandfather, and his grandfather's just not getting it. Absolutely not understanding anything about the data. Well, you should talk to Elizabeth about this. You need to really talk to her. And this was right after Elizabeth's birthday, which there's a fun story about Elizabeth's birthday. The Shultses hosted Elizabeth's birthday. Do you have any idea where the story is about? You're kind of giggling already.
No, I was just giggling because I was just imagining this guy trying to explain to his grandfather why this thing doesn't work. And his grandfather's just sitting there how do I open my email again?
Yeah, basically. Just full boomer. But what happened at the birthday is basically his grandfather forced him. So the thing I glossed over about Tyler, because we don't really need to get too much into his actual personal life for what I'm covering today, was he loved music. He wasn't a really great musician, but he could compose. He could do a little bit of stuff. And I don't mean that as an insult to him. I mean that as he's not going on to do active music career. That it's not that is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, he's got a SoundCloud. He's just not pushy about it.
So his grandfather basically twisted his arms you got to write a song about Elizabeth for her birthday.
Oh no! Oh no!
Yes.
No! Oh no! Okay, I've got my shot at the ready. I might call it in a second, but
I don't.
I need you to continue and finish this before I make up my mind for certain.
Tyler, in his story, says, I really didn't want to do that.
Obviously, yeah.
I tried to get out of it. I tried to tell him I can't get off work. Your boss, the owner of your company's birthday party, you can't go to, huh? I think Elizabeth will forgive you for going to her birthday party.
It sure really works me to the bone, you know. Oh no. Oh no.
So he unfortunately does so. And he does not, even in his story, he says, I don't remember the song, but I do remember that it was super cheesy. Something about one drop of blood can change the world.
Oh no.
Like he phoned it in.
Okay, Prost.
Cheers. His grandpa told him after, like, because this happened after the birthday. Like, it had building up right before the birthday, and after the birthday, he's like trying to convince his grandfather to do something from his end, because he thinks his grandfather will have more power than, oh, I'm just a foot soldier in the company. Yes, I have power of nepotism on my side, but nepotism only goes so far when you're a foot soldier.
I've got the power of God and nepotism on my side. Ah!
So he's like, oh, and like his grandfather like genuinely convinced him that he should talk to Elizabeth, because maybe she doesn't know. It's a company. Maybe she doesn't know that we're not really doing the things the way we should be.
You know, I kind of doubt it. You know, I'm a bit skeptical, if you won't blame me.
No, not at all. So he doesn't read off the email, but from the way he describes it, a very concerned, but like very polite email. Like he summarized it, and the way he summarized it was like, yeah, no, like it was very professional, very like, hey, if you know something I don't, let me know. If like, hey, like I'm concerned from what I'm seeing. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Can you like do something? And he tries to, before the email though, he tries to set up like a meeting. Like for weeks he's trying to get in with her, and she's just dodging him left and right.
Yeah, hey Elizabeth, just a guy here. The math ain't mathin'. Can you call me back?
Hey, I'm seeing some discrepancies. Like I'm seeing some concerns. Can we have a meeting? Trying to use the power of nepotism. Like I don't mean that as an insult, but like there's no way she was not giving him a job and all that to not please his grandfather. Like it was like, I don't think he intentionally was trying to use nepotism. I think they were using nepotism.
He sounds like one of those rich kids who doesn't realize he's rich.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, the kind of guy who doesn't realize that the reason he's so successful is because he started on third base.
That reminds me of a funny story. So, while he's working at Theranos, he has like 3 roommates, and he's the only male, which sounds amazing, but like it was his friend, so it's not like weird, creepy guy thing. They're just like really good friends. Theranos paid their employees money to donate blood so they could run tests on it, right? And sometimes they would have their friends come with them to donate blood. So what they would do is they would all get together every once in a while, go donate blood, get like almost $1,000 between everyone, buy a fuck off amount of beer, and like go get drunk as shit at their house. Throw a party.
Hey, it's rich or poor. That's how you do it when you're that age.
It's an ingenious idea. But in this story, he's like, yeah, but I also had this drawer at that house full of money from when I donated blood because I just had so much.
Okay, so I'm guessing a big part of this story is just that everybody is like really loopy and out of it because they're missing so much blood.
That's a fun interpretation. I love that. I fucking love that.
Okay, that's what I'm gonna be imagining from this point forward, is that they're all just fucking like half drunk and about to like they're just all fucking dizzy.
That would make so much more sense. Unfortunately, I don't think it's that. He like I said, he tries to schedule this meeting, doesn't happen. Then he pins the very, in my opinion, polite, given like the circumstance.
The way that you've described her, it might just be ADHD. She might have just been like forgetting to set up that meeting.
Yeah, not with the response he got to the email.
Oh no.
So he sends it. A little bit of time goes by, and Sonny responds.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. The Terminator has entered the chat.
Sonny dresses Tyler down and tells him, if not for the power of nepotism, I would have fired you.
If your
I am giving you the benefit of the doubt that you came from a good place. And basically claims that Tyler's email was filled with hate, just unintentionally. I refuse to believe, like, with the way Tyler described it, unless he's, like, doing us a complete disservice with how, like, well, like, he described it, that it's even remotely close to what Sonny described it.
Methinks he doth protest too much.
For real with Sonny. Tyler shows this to his grandfather, and his grandfather's like, well, I guess you showed him the email. Not literally like that, but, like, his grandfather doesn't get that the way Sonny responded is like, no, I want you out of this fucking company, but I'm not firing you through the power of nepotism.
Yeah, it's really amazing, like, how similar, like, these sorts of, like, like, CEOs and founders and shit, like, how similar they function to just, like, Bond villains. Like the really polite, like, well-kept, sort of like main villain, but then they've got, like, these fucking stooges that do all of, like, the dirty evil shit.
Yeah, it's exactly like that. So from there, what happens is Tyler's like, my grandpa didn't get it. I'm going to make my exit. And I don't know what kind of time frame we're talking. I also, even if it was mentioned, I probably would have forgot, but I don't think either book really mentioned kind of time frame other than, like, hey, maybe a year had passed during these events, so, like, a huge set of events. And I'm not great at remembering timelines like that. But Tyler decides to make his way out. I don't know what kind of timeline that was on. But the day he sends his resignation via an email, he gives us 2 weeks. And like I said before, they don't let people actually work their 2 weeks. You would think through the power of nepotism he would be able to, but no. Before he gets a response, he decides, I'm going to print this email exchange as proof of, hey, things aren't really like they say they are. And he prints it, and he's having a printer issue. As you know, printers fucking hate everyone.
Yeah.
And by the time it finally starts up and printing, he's got like 40 copies of this print email exchange. And he describes it in his story of, and I just kind of I just snuck everything underneath my shirt, slowly went out to my car, put it in the trunk, then went back to work. And he was just hanging out in the break room that day because he knew they were going to call him to the office. HR sends him an email. It's like, can you meet in my office now? It's like, okay, we're going to go ahead and let you go. It's like, okay, security will be here soon to escort you out. Acting like it's a big old deal. Security's going to see him out. And after a little bit of security not coming, it's like, oh, well, it looks like security got tied up. You're just going to have to see your way out. And it's like, well, okay, can I go get my stuff? No. That's another thing throughout the story is, like, every time there's, like, a major blow up where they fire someone, they never let them get their stuff right away. It's always like a fight to get their stuff.
Yeah, they've got to go into, like, their computers and their laptops and their, like, work phones and stuff.
We're not even talking about that shit. We're talking about personal effects.
Oh, like, they wouldn't even let him get, like, the fucking chia pet off of his desk. Like, the picture of his girlfriend. Like, no, this is company property. If you take this off of our compound, then that is corporate espionage.
I don't think they were really trying to steal the property. I just think they wanted to be able to control the situation. Like, no, get the fuck out. We'll pack a box and we'll deliver it to you. I never heard anything like personal property going missing. I just think they wanted to be able to control every part of that scenario. They didn't want any rumors. Like, it was a control thing.
I'm just imagining just one guy in HR who just kind of, like, after they get the box together, he just kind of rummages through it and picks out anything he wants.
After a little bit of leaving, he still has friends there, and rumor spreads around that he was fired, not quit. And he's like,
He was kind of fired, though. Like, he put in his 2 weeks, and then they, like, told him to go away.
So what I mean by that is, when that scenario, technically you're still leaving in good standing for future employers, right? Well, what he heard is he was fired for improper cybersecurity. So he gets a hold of him. He's like, what the fuck are you talking about? He's like, I didn't do anything wrong. And they pulled out a total of 2 emails to use against him. You want to guess what these emails are? And no, they're not anything bad. It's absolute bullshit that they're arguing.
I don't know. Like he mentioned, fuck. I don't know. I don't know anything about fucking cybersecurity. I'm so bad at that shit.
So he sent 2 emails to himself, breaching cybersecurity. Personal email versus work email. From work to personal. That breaches cybersecurity.
I mean, technically, but like I can only imagine like how often that fucking happens and without any repercussions.
So what the 2 emails were is, one, he was sending himself a PowerPoint presentation that one ended up being either password protected or encrypted, so he couldn't use it. But it was like just a PowerPoint that was like a presentation for like pitches or some shit. Like nothing like proprietary. He didn't like try and send company secrets, nothing like that. It's like innocuous stuff that no cybersecurity expert would give a shit that you sent yourself. And then he sent himself a link to a public URL that was unrelated to work. Like, not the URL was unrelated, but for work purposes. Like,
well, that sounds fucking stupid. That sounds really flimsy. That sounds like if you took it in front of a mediator, it would go in his favor.
Yeah, it was dumb as shit. Yeah. He's like, what are you talking about? It was this and this. And I think they kind of backed down on like, he was like terminated, like bad firing, if you know what I mean, like affect your career firing. Because throughout this whole thing, he's super worried about his future employability because he's like he's early. He thought he was going into Theranos for like a career, man. He thought he was going to retire from Theranos.
Yeah. Bro, okay, wait a second. Bro, you are the grandson of a Secretary of State, and you have a degree in, like, programming. You are the most employable person that has ever lived.
Every time he talks, he doesn't seem to understand the amount of nepotism he can wield. It genuinely impresses me that I don't think he understands that he has a lot of pull just for being like, I'll hire you just so you have I can kind of use your connections in an indirect way that you'll never know.
Bro, you're bro, I'm sorry, hold on. Hold on. This guy's grandfather was a Secretary of State that is like the 3rd most important person in the entire fucking country. Is your grandfather over multiple administrations.
I don't know if that was the same position he held over multiple administrations, but he was high-powered through multiple.
Being in the cabinet of multiple administrations. And you're his grandson, and you're born into wealth, and you have a fucking STEM degree. There is no reality. There's no timeline where this man does not stay rich for the rest of his life and die rich.
I remember, speaking of him worrying about his pedigree, I remember him being worried about leaving the company too soon because he was talking to one of his professors trying to get hired by them because they were starting this company or something. Because the impressive thing about Tyler is Holmes sold him on the future of bioengineering, essentially like working towards public health. And he seems to have like stuck with that even after Theranos. And I commend this man for that.
I mean, yeah, he sounds like his heart is in the right place.
He sounds way more humble than he should for his background. He sounds like a genuinely good guy.
Yeah. It almost pisses me off how like not a snob he is.
I genuinely, I listened to this audiobook years ago and I didn't like actually fully impact like, this dude should have connections out the wazoo and should not be as humble as he has. And I've listened to his book like 2 or 3 times for this episode. And I'm like, brother, how the fuck are you not like some asshole? How are you so nice?
Yeah, that's the impression I'm getting from what you're describing. It's just
Oh, he was worried about his future employability. And he had talked to one of his professors, like his professor starting a startup on like some kind of bioengineering thing, biotech thing. And he was like, I would rather you get to a year because it looks really bad if you don't like. I don't think anyone really like looked at Tyler as anyone different from everything I've seen in the story, other than maybe Theranos. Like, he was just a regular guy to almost everyone else. And he comes to the professor after he's quit. It's like, well, I quit. Will you hire me now? He's like, I guess. It was hilarious.
I suppose. Not what I had in mind, but I fucking guess.
And selling how Tyler is now, he didn't stick with that for long term, but eventually he does start another thing working towards public health. I can't remember the details because it's such a footnote in the story, but like he is actively trying to do better for humanity in a way that Elizabeth Holmes genuinely never could. Moving on to the investigation. So John Carreyrou spent like fucking years just working in the background, like talking to former employees. I think he had a total like 5 informants, like really major informants. And again, I'm focusing mostly on the Tyler stuff just because that gives us a nice clean narrative, because this story is all over the place. Like if I tell this, like this is already over the place, but like if I tell this in depth like John Carreyrou did, there is so much more in this story. Before I go on, there was state inspections that were kind of like Theranos like fucked with basically to like get a good inspection. Like they basically made them think that they were running them on the Edisons, but they weren't. And there was confirmation testing. So there's like a group that goes around and sends out samples, and you're not supposed to know what you're testing for. You're supposed to test the blood and like be done and send your results back. And then that company will like be like, okay, here's where you fucked up. Here's how you can improve. We'll work with you. Like it's supposed to genuinely make labs better. And what they did is they ran that sample on both the hacked equipment and on on their machines, and they just took the hacked equipment's answer, which was the right answer. And Tyler saw this happen, and he actually ended up reporting them, but I don't know whether it was negligence from the person he reported it to, whether his report wasn't strong enough, or it just got lost in the shuffle, which is possible.
The government do what the government do.
But along the way, I think after the first article John publishes, I'm not going to talk about the article yet, but after the first article he publishes, he follows up on that. He's like, hey, whatever happened here? It's like, we're not sure how this happened, but we're going to get the ball rolling. And that'll show up later, because John got the ball rolling back on that. Like I said, he spoke to multiple people in the company. Tyler is the biggest one because he's the one that Theranos saw as a threat. Like they locked him down as like a. So what happened is how they figured out Tyler was an informant. Is Tyler wasn't going to be on the record. He wasn't going to be one of the named people. He wasn't even like. He was basically a corroboration witness. He wasn't supposed to be quoted. He wasn't whatever. And he had turned over those emails that he sent to not Sonny, but Elizabeth. And John uses a figure from there, assuming that figure was just something that was used with the company that wouldn't be traced back to Tyler. But what happened is that was a number Tyler himself calculated. So that number came straight from Tyler, and they could trace that through their email records. And that's how they knew that Tyler was an informant, like right off the bat. Because what John does is he doesn't sandbag his topics of interest, because he doesn't like just being, oh, I got all this information on you, can you rebuff? Because sometimes rebuffments are perfect and like okay, I can perfectly explain this in a non-bad light, right? So he was like, okay, here's what I found while investigating you guys. Do you have anything to say that could change the narrative? Like, am I genuinely wrong for looking into this? Like, he's not trying to do a hit piece, essentially. Like, he's genuinely trying to investigate and find something. Find, like, the truth. He's not just trying, like, oh, I found this group of secluded people who hate the company, and they're going to tell the worst story about it.
Yeah, because he's a good reporter.
Yeah, this guy is great. I don't know how he's not a genuine, like, household name. Like,
Yeah, journalists are rarely household names unless they're like the ones that are like on TV.
So Theranos latched onto that figure and figured out that Tyler was a witness, right? Like, he was an informant, not a witness. And after that, like, I don't know when it began, but because of this, Theranos had both John and Tyler under 24-hour surveillance. They were being followed for over a year.
Oh, boy.
Like, Tyler talks about it in his book, about how paranoid he was and how much he was fighting his demons because of this. Like, he wanted to get a gun for safety, but he knew because of the way it was affecting his mental health, he wasn't sure if that wouldn't have been used on himself. Like, and it's not like he doesn't mention it casually. Mostly through the book, he has the same kind of intonation, but you can barely tell he kind of breaks down a little bit at that. Like, it's not super perceptible, but after listening to it at least 3 or 4 times, you can really, like, know that affected him.
Okay, yeah, we're getting into like the really, really sinister evil shit that Theranos has done.
And it's because we glossed over the other shit, because it's just statistics. There's so many people that they fucked over from their tests because they're people. I didn't mention this earlier, but they somehow got their machines used in clinical trials so people could adjust their medicine in clinical trials on the fly on inaccurate.
Yeah, and never mind took down Safeway and cost all of those people their employment.
I mean, no, like, Elizabeth Holmes and Sonny are directly responsible for at least one death, in my opinion. Because of that.
Yeah, it's as funny as this story is, we got to keep in mind this had real world consequences.
So what happened is he was the chief scientist at Theranos, Ian Gibbons. After he was, like, done with Theranos, like, he had a bad out with them. After a while, they sued him, and I can't remember the reason, but he was being called in to testify, and they really, like, he was being pulled both ways, and I'm trying to find it. Okay, so he was the chief scientist at Theranos, and he was the first scientist they hired. He was the director of asset develop senior assay 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 development.
Might also be a typo. It might just be asset development, but assays. I actually have never heard the word assay before, but it sounds like a word that would be real and like.
So as it went on, he was diagnosed with cancer, and he went under treatments, had multiple surgeries, and was abstinent at the same time. He authored 23 of the patents that Theranos was, like, using as their IP. I'm trying to summarize this because this was something I'd forgotten when I was writing the script. He expressed his, like, frustration that nothing was working and brought it up to Holmes. And what happened was he was fired, then rehired at a demoted position. Even though he helped write many of the patents they were using, helped, like, basically with the beginning of the company. And he was fired because he told his friend Channing Robinson about his concerns about Theranos' overinflated claims, and Robertson immediately told the directors, Holmes. Robertson immediately told Holmes, and Gibson's was immediately dismissed.
God, these fucking assholes.
And in 2011, he was involved in a patent theft case between Theranos and Richard Fitz. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. I remember hearing it. And what happened is this guy that was an old family friend of Elizabeth's heard about Elizabeth's idea, and he came up with a patent that he knew, I can sell this to Elizabeth later on, and this will help her a lot. And just, they never got a hold of it, so he got bitter for a while. And then just forgot about it. Like, nothing really came of it initially. And then Theranos became aware of his patent and, like, sued him over patent infringement. And because of this, Gibbons was going to be called to give a deposition, which is basically like, it's not literally testifying, but it's like, depositions aren't really usually in front of like the jury, but like it can be in front of the judge. It can be like this. It's similar to testifying, but like a little more narrow and guided, and it's not really cross-examined. It's just giving your like thing. And rather than having to pick a side and all that, he decided that he was going to overdose on acetaminophen in 2013.
Oh boy.
He was hospitalized for several days, but unfortunately died due to liver failure. And I hang that at Elizabeth and Sonny's head 100%. They are at least responsible for manslaughter, in my opinion.
That is, man, I don't know what to say to that. That's so fucking evil.
There is evil, there is malice in this story, but I think there's even more just incompetent stupidness.
Yeah. The malice is to cover up the incompetence.
Yeah. They were like, hey, we can get this done. Oh, it's not working. I don't give a shit. It's going to work. And that's, it just snowballed from there.
Yeah. They were so fucking confident in themselves that they just wrought a path of destruction in their wake to cover up the fact that their shit didn't work, on the assumption that eventually they could get it to work because they just thought they were so fucking smart. That's what this is. Like, oh, it doesn't work right now, but we can't let people know that, so our big brains are going to figure it out eventually. So we just need to cover up that we're not succeeding right now until we're able to actually like make it work.
So from there, what happened was Theranos convinced Tyler's grandfather. And I think this is one of the biggest betrayals a grandfather can ever do. Because throughout this, you've kind of got the feeling that Elizabeth has a hold on Tyler's grandfather. And she had. Because like I haven't really gone into detail, but both John Carey's book and Tyler's own book really sell to you that she had her hooks in his grandfather. His grandfather's like, hey, Theranos wants this to be over. If you just sign this one-page NDA, again, because they were accusing him of being an informant, and that you're not going to talk to anyone else from here on out, it'll be done. And they're going to meet at Tyler's grandfather, which would not be Switzerland, but considering both have ties, I understand why they picked the grandfather's house. And what ended up actually happening is two lawyers, high-powered lawyers from David Boise's law firm. And David Boise is a fucking like high-powered attorney. He is the person who represented Gore in Bush versus Gore. He got Proposition 8, which in California, which bans same-sex marriages, invalidated. And like he represented Epstein's clients. Like, he's been part of like major, huge, like considered like on the good side lawyers. Like, I don't know if there's ever a good side on that high powered of a lawyer, but like it wasn't the scummy side. And what they were there to do is essentially make him sign an affidavit or a document that, in my opinion, would have been self-incriminating. What they wanted to do initially was make him sign a document saying, yes, I did talk to him. Here are the names. No, I won't talk anymore. And if anyone worth their salt knows how an investigative journalist works, they would know, are you fucking stupid? Of course he doesn't know who the other informants are.
Yeah, as a reference to reference back to a previous episode about what the damage that a lawyer with strong convictions in the wrong direction can do. Go back to our episode on the French Revolution.
Yeah. Oh, God. In actuality, like outside of this thing, Tyler knew of one informant, a singular informant. And that was only kind of because he led her to that. You know how, like, sometimes informants will know of the one previous because the previous one led to them, but that's all they know?
Right.
That's kind of what it was, is he knew of his friend Aruna that was an informant, but I don't even think she built the basis of hardly anything. Maybe she got the data that John Carrier used, but like, I don't even think she was that big of a player in the informant stuff. Like, she was hardly mentioned in the book. If I'm remembering the name correctly, I could be wrong. You know how my brain is, but I am assuming it's Aruna because he talks about only knowing one person on the informant list. Tyler does. There's arguing back and forth. There's negotiation. And after a while, Tyler's grandfather just says, get the fuck out. We'll come back late tomorrow. And he's mad, but he's obviously not mad enough to read Elizabeth the Riot Act and to actually get this fixed. Because what happens tomorrow is he tells Elizabeth that, hey, that's not what you said it was. I want the 1-page non-disclosure agreement, and that's it. But what happens the next day, Derek? They send the exact same lawyers calling the exact same bullshit. So there's a bunch of back and forth, and at one point, Tyler gets his grandfather to say, hey, I don't want to be able to be sued. Tyler says, I don't want to be able to be sued. So his grandfather's like, okay, if we add you can't be sued for 2 years. And Tyler, he doesn't word it like this, but he's like, are you fucking stupid, Grandpa? I don't want to be able to be sued ever. And his grandfather's like, I'm just trying to get something they'll agree to. And then his grandfather does a little self-reflection and is like, crosses out the 2 years, can't be sued by Theranos. And throughout this whole thing, Tyler's like, well, I know I can't sign this because this says, the new version says I never talked to John. But it's still, for some reason, asking for the informants.
Right, yeah.
Which, again, is like, I think this whole document was to try and be like, haha, I got you. Like, you're obviously an informant. Fuck you. We're going to depose you. We're going to invalidate everything. And then we're going to, like, destroy you.
It's Elizabeth's first sort of foray into, like, the shit that most major corporations do on, like, a regular basis. But she hasn't quite got all of her ducks in a row because the shit still comes out.
Yeah. Another thing I didn't mention earlier, I think this is the best thing to mention. So upon entering the company, which this is actually fairly normal if you're working with a company that has company secrets that you need to keep secret, you're asked to sign a non-disclosure agreement. And it's usually most non-disclosure agreements like company secrets. And in fact, NDAs do not count towards criminal activities. So it doesn't fucking matter if your boss is like, well, you signed an NDA. If illegal activities occurred, that invalidates at least for the illegal activities. But what was different at Theranos is they forced them to sign one on the way out. And I've actually heard of places doing it either one or the other, either at entrance or at exit, never both. And there is a stupid story from Sonny. They fired another employee. And again, I mentioned this earlier, but I'm bad with names. I can't remember the employee's name. And they were Sonny was harassing him to sign another in non-disclosure because they forced at beginning at end. And he was like, "No, fuck you. I signed one when I signed up. It's valid. There's no reason to sign another one. Like, legally speaking, you're covered either way." And the ex-employee left. Well, Sonny calls the fucking cops on him and says he stole company secrets. Well, the cops are like, "What are you talking about? What did he steal? Like, how?" "He stole them in his head."
This fucking idiot.
Sonny actually said that to a fucking cop.
Has he told anybody about it? No. Then how has he stolen it? It's in his head. Yeah, it's in all of y'all's head. Yeah, but then he left, and it's still in his head. But what are these people? What does this guy fucking? What does Sonny want? What does he want? Like a real life one of those fucking one of those like pen like memory erasers from Men in Black?
The neuralizer?
Yeah. Just Sonny just like just operating on like fucking science fiction. Well, it is Silicon Valley. They're all operating on science fiction logic.
No, like, all jokes aside, I think it's a cultural thing because, like, stuff like, I hear this, like, in India, that area, like, would it be East Asian? Like, I genuinely am not great with...
India would be South Asian.
South Asian, apologies. That general area is, like, there's a lot of cultural misunderstandings, like, that I've heard of. I think it's just, like, the way they process stuff, I think, just leads to that. Because I've heard of, like, just complete either, like, misinterpretations or misunderstandings from people of that descent before. Like, I'm, again, bad memory, but, like, I can't give you any examples, but, like, I feel like I hear of stuff like that more often of people that descent. So I assume it's either a cultural or misunderstanding or some way that their thought patterns are, like, because cultures and, like, languages lead to different thought patterns because languages are structured different. It's a thing people don't think of, but, like, people think differently and structured differently based on their language because their languages are structured differently.
Yeah, I can see that. I can also see, like, he's just an out-of-touch rich guy, and also, yeah.
Oh, no, Sonny, like, I'm not defending Sonny. I'm just saying it doesn't sound as absurd because of who he is. It's still absurd, but it's not as absurd. After a bunch of negotiation, it gets through the final draft, and Tyler comes up with one Hail Mary pass because he knows he's never signing any of these. Because it's the one he's never mentioned in the book, but, like, I think it's self-incriminating. Like, it's obviously a trick, in my opinion. The other one is he actually did it. Like, he's like, even if, like, so what he does is his final Hail Mary is he's like, well, I want this is all in Theranos' favor. I want a lawyer to look over it from my side, send it to your lawyer, grandfather, and have him look over it, make sure it's serving my interests as well. And so they do that. After argument and, like, trying to fight it, they do that. And he runs to the fucking kitchen out of the way, hidden, and starts looking at the phone book. It's like, where's that lawyer's name? Where's that lawyer's name? And his grandmother hands him a scrap of paper with the lawyer's number. And he calls the lawyer. He's like, my grandfather's going to fax you something and tell me to sign it. I need you to tell him I cannot sign it. He's like, hold on. What's going on? He gives, like, a brief synopsis, but not the full story. It's like, okay, you need to come visit me right away. And so, like, the next day he goes and visits. And the thing I haven't mentioned right now is this is all under pressure of a lawsuit. They have already filed action against Tyler.
Wow. Fucking.
That pre-filed. I don't know if it's like in the courts, but they're threatening we'll be going to court within days.
Yeah, they got the paper. Yeah, they got the paperwork locked and loaded. They just got to go hand it off at the booth.
And that's another reason why I think this was trying to entrap him. I think this was trying to incriminate himself. So he goes over to the lawyer. He explains everything. And the lawyer's like, well, I technically have a conflict of interest since I represent your grandfather, and your grandfather's on the board of directors. And I think there was another, like, he represented a few other people that were involved with Theranos. But, like, here is this other lawyer I trust to handle this case. Not associated with me, not with my firm. And they come on, and they represent Tyler. And things go from there throughout the years. And there's this really...
Yeah, lawyer. Yeah, a lawyer with principles. Really a mixed bag.
I know. There's this honestly heartbreaking story because his parents are aware of this up to this point, but once the lawyers get involved, he can't really tell his parents shit because it's a lawsuit, and he's like, he doesn't want to get them involved in a bad way, and like he's just depressed because he can't talk to anyone about anything about this. Like he has to just sit there and suffer as Theranos is threatening him day by day. He's worried he might go to jail. He's worried he might be like public reputation ruined, might never be able to work for anything. Like my life might be over is what he's worrying about over like multiple years at this point. I think this is honestly heartbreaking because in order to be able to actually talk to someone, what he has to do is have his parents hire lawyers and have the lawyers communicate about this. And he talks about how that's not the same as being able to go to my room and have my mom come talk to me like I was a kid. And it's depressing. I felt so bad for him at that moment.
Yeah, like if I'm having a rough day, like I could just call up my dad and be like and just ask for advice and shit. Like not being able to do that because it might affect like my entire future and my reputation is just...
I genuinely understand what he meant by I didn't want to own a firearm because I wasn't sure if I would take my own life. He didn't word it like that, obviously. But genuinely, if I was in his shoes, I don't know if I would have had his strength.
Fuck.
What's even worse about this, at this time, he's like, I need anything to distract myself. And he gets on dating apps. And he meets this amazing girl, and they start dating. And it ends up being like a couple years, 2-3 year relationship. And she doesn't know anything about this. She doesn't know he's suffering this entire time. And then the story breaks. And John Carrey's article is published. And all of his friends like, oh, you used to work for Theranos. All this bad shit's coming out. They don't even know he's one of the people that was part of the article. They just know he used to work there. And he felt so bad that he hadn't even told his girlfriend at the time that he used to work there. That it was this major part of his life that he had just had to, didn't want to, had to keep secret from, at the time, the most important person in his life.
Man, I can't fathom.
Could you imagine being in his shoes and being in the middle of a lawsuit and you can't tell Caitlin?
Man, I thought this, when you first brought him up at the beginning of this episode, I thought like he was going to be the fucking like one of the fucking assholes. No, this guy's the fucking hero. He is.
Like, if there are heroes, it is John Carrey and Tyler in this story. Tyler more so, because I feel like he suffered more than John, because Theranos put them under pressure, put their thumb on him, and he persevered.
Tyler bore the weight of the fucking world on his shoulders, man. Holy shit, what a guy.
Tyler even talked about, when I mentioned that he was being followed, about thinking he was paranoid for a little bit, and thinking people were legitimately following him. He thought he was being stalked, but like at the time he didn't connect it with Theranos. Like he would just be like, after a while he finally put two and two together, and after meeting with John again at like campus, he was like, and a couple hey, these things have been going along, blah blah blah, and then a couple days later he receives a photo in the mail. Can you guess what that photo was?
Oh, was it of him with Jean?
Yeah.
Oh no, that's not good. Oh, these fucking assholes.
John Carreyrou tells us in his book, I don't know how long Tyler knew he was being followed, but John Carreyrou is convinced minimum of a year for both him and Tyler. Minimum. Before the article comes out.
I fucking hate these people so bad. I want to beat these people.
They are horrible human beings.
I always have like a general idea of like how fucking awful these people are just by like osmosis. Just by like generally kind of picking up the story through context. I I think from what the general knowledge that I had about like Elizabeth Holmes and Sonny.
See, I don't think the general public looks into how hard they tried to thumb this story from breaking. I genuinely think if it wasn't for John Carreyrou, we might not have found out about Theranos for like a handful of more years. And they might have gone on till like, we might have just been like, I knew about this back not long into college. Like I had heard about it before, but I did not realize how recent this story was. There are a lot of stories I did not realize how recent they are. Like Gypsy Rose Blanchard, I didn't know how recent she was, but I've known about her for years. I found out about her story not long after it occurred. I found about Theranos not long after like all the shit blew up. I want to say I found out about it in like 18 or 19, which most of this blew up in like 16, 17, I want to say, which is not that long after. So finally, the first, because this ended up being a series of articles, came out from John Carreyrou. It was a splash that turned into a tsunami. At first, it didn't seem like to be making waves, and the timing was actually very important because Elizabeth was about to go make a speech, like give keynote speeches at a very important conference related to the field. And John was like, we need, like, everyone in the company was like, this has to be out before that conference. And it got released before the conference. But Elizabeth still attended the conference is the thing. But everyone there knew about the article. Like, they had heard, they knew what the accusations were. But this is the most respectful thing I've ever heard. And I'm not sure Elizabeth deserved it from everything we've heard about her, but it wasn't public knowledge. So, like, taking information as we knew it, understandable why it is. They treated her with respect during the Q&A of that conference because she was under a Q&A. I think there was only like 2 or 3 questions related to the article. They treated her with respect, but with skepticism, which was amazing.
I'm
not saying that was the right thing historically to do, but given what they knew at the time, it was part of the smartest thing to do because they didn't have all the data.
Yeah, but I feel like in situations like that, it's always worth it to like press.
I feel like Elizabeth would have just exited stage left. I think they got more if they didn't press.
What did they get though?
Not enough. They didn't get anything substantial. But I don't think they were getting anything substantial to begin with. I think Elizabeth would have turned stage left and ran. I don't think she would have given them shit.
I feel like that would have been worth it though.
I mentioned earlier that John had followed up on Tyler's anonymous report about how Theranos was skirting regulations, how they weren't actually doing their testing right and all that. And that John had followed up on that, right? Right after the article, the ball really got rolling and regulators really just like, we're looking at you with a fine-tooth comb, Theranos.
That's something that a company never wants to hear. It's fine-tooth comb.
Yeah, and that led to Theranos having to decertify over 10,000 tests.
That's people's fucking health. That's people's health. Oh my god.
Yeah, and they were running damage control this entire time right after that. Like, they didn't have to run super much after the first one, but as the articles continued and more people were realizing what Theranos had done, they really, like, tried to run damage control, and during their damage control, they ended up having to secure a loan because all of their investors had, like, dried up at that point. No one was investing in Theranos. They secured a loan for 4% of the company, secured by their IP, for $100 million. It ended up being it got eaten up by all the lawsuits because they were just inundated by lawsuits after this.
Ooh, that's not a good investment.
Safeway, I think, sued them. Walgreens sued them. I'm not sure if Safeway did for 100% because I'm not sure if Safeway is still around by then. But they settled most of their investor lawsuits, essentially, after this, and then they folded in September of 2018. June of 2018, both Sonny and Elizabeth are brought up on charges of what, Derek?
Man, why do you keep phrasing these as questions? My brain doesn't work like that. You can't put me on the spot.
I love trying to get a guess out of people. It's just a thing I like to do.
I don't know, fucking fraud. I'm gonna say fraud.
Specifically, wire fraud.
Oh god, it's okay. Don't make me go on my fucking rant about how wire fraud is a fucking stupid crime or stupid criminal code.
I mean, it probably is, but like, I get what they're getting at. So basically, I didn't look at the case because lawsuit cases, like looking through the filings, is a fucking bitch. But my assumption is because they were getting their investments through false pretenses, they're claiming that all the investments were wire fraud.
So they're framing the investors as the victims to make this. God, this fucking legal system. This is people's health, and they're worried about the investors. And that the investors are the strongest victims you could get for this case is fucking insane to me.
Well, so I want to say it because of the way the law was worded, that was the only way to go after them. Because Theranos was working within a gray area within the law on their tests. So most of the time, a lab is allowed to do their tests without certification from like the FDA or whatever, because they're very specific to that lab and the machinery. But they're testing for certain things. And because they weren't on the market in the same way like a blood sugar monitor or this, that, and the other thing was, they kind of avoided the FDA as well. They were in this gray zone where they weren't subservient to any legal codification where they had to have certain standards. They had no standards to meet.
Yeah, and I understand that part of it.
And those labs that I was talking about before, they kind of have standards that they hold themselves to because you have to be able to prove that your lab is actually testing in the right way. Like, there are still ways that hold those labs in check. It's not just like they're gallivanting in like, well, this doesn't actually blah, blah, blah. There are things, it's just not under the FDA.
Yeah, and I get that. But it's just the fact that the strongest possible case that they could bring against these assholes is concerning the well-being of the fucking rich investors. Is just such a scathing indictment of our fucking legal system.
You're right. You're absolutely right. I understand why things were legislated they were at the time. Like, it makes complete sense. Because they didn't expect someone like Theranos to pop up and be like, I'm in a legal gray zone. Fuck you!
Yeah, and that, yeah, like 100%, I understand it. I understand where the prosecution would be coming from in that situation, but the fact that the entire structure of, like, at its base foundations, the fact that the legal system is structured in such a way is incredible to me.
The amount of things within our legal system that would baffle our day-to-day citizen is baffling. Because we like to think as our legal system as this, while not perfectly turning cog of machines, that we have certain, like, it's a machine that works pretty good at, like, filtering shit out, but really they imagine that it's like a mesh, like a filter. But what they don't know is the filter is not consistent. The mesh is like really fine here, but really open here, and like slightly less open here. And like, it's not perfect. It's not even uniform at all.
Yeah, it's not a mesh that's made with like precision tools and like a professional setting. It's like a mesh that was kind of constructed by your drunk uncle in your backyard. We're using like a homemade smelter.
Yeah, it's a bunch of bullshit. Like, it's bullshit that we've, like, okay, the public got mad at us. We'll increase the filter here, but we'll avoid tightening it here. And it's just slowly, like, intentionally avoided here. And sometimes they loosen it here because, like, oh, this thing that people got up on rewards are, like, gives us an opportunity to just not give a shit about this area and open it up. Like, it's a calculated game of chess on what we can not give a shit and what we are forced to give a shit about.
Yeah. It. Anyways, yeah. Continue, please.
We're basically right here at the end. So I didn't realize how recently these trials had ended, Derek. Do you want to guess, like, how recently these trials had ended if they were brought up on charges in 2018?
Was it in the last year or so?
Basically, Elizabeth and Sonny were both, like, charged, like, not convicted back in 2022. Sonny was in December. I don't remember when Elizabeth was. But Elizabeth got 11 years and 3 months in prison. And can you guess when she started her prison sentence? Because it's within the last 365 days.
December.
No, you're a little bit too soon. She started her sentence on May 30th, 2023. And Sonny, I think he was sentenced later, so I don't know if he started serving or if he's in the middle of it, appeals, because these are the kind of people that even after their company went down and they don't have any wealth, quote unquote, like, Elizabeth's wealth was tied to Theranos. I think Sonny still had some of his wealth, but I'm not for certain. He was sentenced to December of 2022, and he got 12 years and 11 months in prison plus 3 years of probation. And funny story, Elizabeth started dating a man who was independently wealthier than she was, like, before Theranos, like, family-wise. And she even has kids with this man. She's on her second child.
During the trial, that all that happened.
Yeah, like, she had a child, like, right before she went to jail, from what I understand.
Wow, what the? So I guess the whole thing with Sonny didn't really survive, like all those articles and shit.
No, from what I understand, once Theranos went down, like, the things, like, with Sonny, like, fizzled out.
Yeah, that'll really kill the mood. Yeah, don't date in the place where you work.
So, any final thoughts before we go on this episode, Derek?
Just that I hope Tyler's doing all right. I hope he's doing good.
At the end of the book, he seems to be doing a lot better, genuinely, and I am proud of him for going through this, because like at any point he could have just been like, fuck it, I'm done. I am not doing anything more with John. I'm going to huddle in my home until this blows over.
Yeah, he seems like he has convictions, which is very like refreshing and like good for him.
And with the way the book goes, he words it in a way like he didn't feel like he had a choice, which at times it feels like he didn't, at times it feels like he did. But like, he wouldn't have even been in the situation where they forced his hand if he didn't have convictions and wasn't what I think is a genuinely good person. I don't know his political opinions. I don't care. That man is a good man, regardless of his political opinions, because he stood behind his morals and he actually he fought for people's health, as you kept on putting it earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, bro, he got fucking gang stalked by his former employers. His grandfather included among them just because he was trying to call out like the evil shit that they were doing.
And he essentially lost his grandfather for years. He told us in the book that he's not sure he's back to normal with his grandfather, because at some point his grandfather finally realized shit was fucked. But I don't think that was even till like right before the article was released. It wasn't when the asshole sent lawyers to his grandfather when they should have sent a one-page NDA. His grandfather did not get that.
Yeah, that fucking guy is... God, fuck that guy, by the way. For more than just being like a high-ranking official in the administrations of several fucking evil presidents, but also for just being taking his absolute fucking psychopathic approach to life in his own dealings with his fucking grandson. God, I can't fucking
I feel
fathom.
so bad for Tyler, and I pour one out for him. Tyler is a real Chad in this story. Like, he is genuinely the hero of this story.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah. Good on you, Tyler. I hope you have a good rest of your life.
I genuinely want to see Tyler to go off and do good things with that company he's starting with his friends. He talks about how, like, I don't remember the details of the company, but he talks about how I think this is when he realized he had the nepotism behind him a little bit. I don't think he ever fully realized it, but like, he put out like, hey, I'm trying to create a company to do this thing. And like, he got a bunch of people's like, I'll work it with you, blah, blah, blah. Then one person told him, well, you're fucking stupid because it's not going to work. And here's why. And he's like, I want to work with that person because they actually like pushed back. They actually like, they're not just a yes man. Everyone else that applied with him was just a yes man.
Yeah, maybe he's more self-aware than I gave him credit for.
Hello, this is Editing Tim. Come back to say I did not add my sources in the original recording of this episode, so I am here now to tell them to you. So the John Carreyrou book was called Bad Blood, and it was very well written. I will 100% get behind that. It was very good. And Tyler's little audiobook or podcast, I'm not quite sure, that he narrates himself, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah, he narrates himself. It's thicker than water, and I recommend both of these books. These were amazing books.
Maybe. So, Derek, where can they find you on social media?
They can find me on Twitter at Visigoth. The first I is a 1, the O is a 0. They can find me on Blue Sky. I'm not on Blue Sky. I don't know why I keep telling this. I haven't been on Blue Sky since in fucking months.
I mean, we still post our podcast episodes there, so might as well give your at. If you get more followers, you're probably gonna like be on it.
Yeah, if they could get the UI a little bit closer to like what Twitter's is, and add like DMs and stuff.
So what is your Blue Sky at, Derek?
Uh, it's also at Visigoth. The first I is just a regular I. The O is a 0. Tim, give them all of the good stuff.
So they can find me at Blue Sky and Twitter at Tim, aka Otis. But they can also find us at the podcast on Facebook and Instagram at The Alexander Society Pod. And they can find us on Twitter and Blue Sky at Alex Society Pod. And they can find us on TikTok, where we post our outtakes, new episode posts, and beer reviews, which I need to nag Derek more about because he needs to be posting beer reviews.
I'm sorry.
At Alexander Society. And if they've enjoyed this episode, they can find us on their streaming platform of choice and give us a rate and review. And we will see you next time.
Bye.